Tell me when trust becomes indifference. Is it when your boyfriend stops asking who texted, when he never raises his voice, or when another man can touch you and he still refuses to fight? For 22 months, Adrian gave me freedom and called it love. I began calling it proof that nothing I did could make him leave. So at Paige's birthday, I took my ex's hand, watched Adrian's face, and turned one dance into a test he had never agreed to take. His fingers pressed against the inside of his new jacket, and then he gave me one slow nod. I was sure he had stepped outside to wait until I was ready to be forgiven. My name is Sloane Mercer. I was 30 and scheduled flight crews for a regional airline in Charlotte. When a pilot called in sick at 4 in the morning, I found another before the first passengers reached security. When storms closed an airport, I moved people across a screen until every empty seat had a name. My work trained me to expect alarms. Silence usually meant I had missed something. Adrian Vale was 33 and repaired medical equipment for hospitals. He could enter a room where a monitor had failed, listen while 3 people spoke at once, and find the one cable nobody had checked. He did not confuse urgency with panic. That was one of the first things I loved about him. We met when my father's heart monitor stopped working during an overnight stay. Adrian was the technician sent to inspect it. He fixed the connection, explained the problem without making my father afraid, and brought me coffee from the nurse's station after he saw I had been awake for 12 hours. 2 weeks later, I saw him at a sandwich shop near the hospital. He remembered my father's name. I remembered that he took his coffee without sugar. Our first date lasted 4 hours because neither of us checked the time. Adrian was steady from the beginning. If he said he would arrive at 7, his car turned into the drive at 6:58. He kept pain medicine in his glove box for my headaches. When my father came home, Adrian installed 2 handrails without being asked and returned the next day because one screw did not sit straight. He did not perform care. He completed it. During an ice storm that closed the airport for most of a weekend, I worked 19 hours without leaving the operations room. Adrian brought me clean socks and a container of pasta because he knew the vending machines would be empty. He waited in the public lobby until 2 in the morning, then drove me home over roads covered in salt. I slept with my head against the window while he kept both hands on the wheel. Leo had once sent flowers after making me cry. Adrian brought food before I had time to ask. His steadiness had a difficult side. After an argument, he needed silence before he could speak. Sometimes a whole night passed before he told me what had hurt him. By then, his sentences sounded finished and careful, while mine was still hot. I often wanted him to meet me inside the mess instead of returning after he had arranged every feeling. Adrian believed calm made a conversation safe. I sometimes heard calm as distance. For the first year, that made me feel chosen. Then the quiet began to trouble me. My relationship before Adrian had been with Leo Barrett. Leo entered every room as if music had started for him. He was loud, attractive, and never fully available. He could send 20 messages in one evening and vanish for 4 days after breakfast. If another man looked at me, Leo placed a hand on my chair. If I went out without him, he asked who had been there and which person had bought the second drink. We fought in parking lots. We broke up twice in one summer. Each return came with flowers or a midnight drive to somewhere neither of us could afford. I spent 3 years calling the sharp rise and fall passion. When it finally ended, Leo came back only when he was bored. He sent songs at midnight. He replied to old photographs. Once, he wrote that calm men could keep me comfortable but would never understand what made me dangerous. Blocking him would have been easy. Instead, I kept the messages like small mirrors. The simple version was that Leo made me feel wanted because he made wanting look unstable. Adrian wanted me every day, so his attention became part of the furniture. Paige knew both versions of me. We had been friends since college, and she had watched Leo turn my weekends into emergencies. She liked Adrian because he never made her rescue me from a bathroom or drive across town for a suitcase. At brunch one Sunday, Paige asked why I still answered Leo. I told her I enjoyed reminding him that he had lost me. Adrian knew Leo still sent messages and did not care enough to be jealous. Paige said trust was not the same as not caring. I said a man with a pulse would show something. My friend Brielle laughed and asked how far I thought I could go before Adrian finally reacted. I said he was too soft to leave. Even if I danced on another man in front of him, he would be hurt for one evening and start a calm conversation the next morning. Paige stopped stirring her coffee. She asked whether I wanted a boyfriend or an audience. I told her not to make a joke serious. Of course, it was serious to me. I wanted one clear sign that Adrian could lose control because losing me frightened him. Adrian did not check my phone. He never told me which dress was too short or which friend invited trouble. When Leo replied to a photograph from our beach trip, Adrian asked whether there was anything unfinished between us. I told him there was not. He accepted the answer. No search. No demand. Not even a second question. Respect was the obvious name for that. To me, it felt like another door I could push without finding a wall. Our worst argument before Paige's birthday happened at a bar after one of my airline co-workers left the company. A supervisor named Grant kept touching my shoulder while he spoke. I did not move away because Adrian was sitting across the table. I wanted him to see. On the drive home, Adrian asked whether I had welcomed Grant's attention to upset him. I said Grant behaved that way with everyone. Adrian pointed out that I had looked at him after each touch. His voice stayed calm. Mine rose because one of us had to make the moment feel important. Adrian pulled into my apartment lot and turned off the engine. He said he would never control who I spoke to or start a fight to prove ownership. Then he asked for one thing. He did not want me to use another man to humiliate him in front of people. I promised I would not. He pressed his thumb against the car key, waiting. I kissed him and said the conversation was finished. The simple version was that he had asked instead of demanded. I treated that as evidence that the boundary had no force behind it. 2 weeks before Paige's 30th birthday, small things around Adrian changed. He started taking calls in the hall. His mother called me one evening and asked whether my father would be free late on Saturday. When I asked why, she said Adrian was trying to arrange a family call about something good. I assumed he wanted both families to sing to Paige. Paige asked whether I planned to leave the club with Adrian or stay until closing. She wanted an exact answer. I said Adrian would drive, so we would probably leave together after midnight. 3 days later, she borrowed a thin gold ring from my right hand while we waited for lunch. She turned it over, asked whether it ever fit my left hand, and gave it back before I answered properly. Paige often noticed clothes and jewelry. I placed the question beside every other harmless detail. Adrian was distracted too. He asked what kind of flowers I thought looked honest instead of expensive. I said white ranunculus, then laughed at how specific the question was. He wrote the word into his phone. On Thursday, I found a hotel confirmation glowing on his screen. The Bellwether was a small place 3 blocks from the club. It had a rooftop terrace where we once drank coffee during a summer storm. Before I could read the time, Adrian picked up the phone. He said he was helping Paige with a birthday detail. I asked whether he had become her event planner. He smiled and said only for one night. The smile did not make me curious. It made me feel left out. Adrian and Paige shared a secret, and neither seemed worried that I might dislike it. Leo would have made sure I knew another woman needed him. He would have watched my face and enjoyed the result. Adrian simply kept his promise to Paige. The day of the party, he left work early. He picked me up wearing a charcoal jacket I had never seen. The shirt beneath it was black, and his watch had been polished. He had cut his hair that afternoon. I asked why he was dressed like the birthday belonged to him. He said he wanted the photographs to look good. At a red light, his fingers touched the inside left side of the jacket. The motion was quick, almost a check. I assumed the tailor had left a tag inside. My phone showed a new message from Leo before we reached the club. He had reacted to Paige's public birthday post and asked whether I would be there. I answered yes. Adrian saw the name on the screen. He did not ask to read the message. He looked back at the road and asked if Leo planned to come. I said I had no idea. That was technically true. I had not invited him. I had only given him the information he needed to invite himself. The club was called Lumen. Paige had rented a raised area behind the main dance floor with curved blue sofas and a brass rail. The music reached us as a steady pressure through the floor. Bottles stood in silver buckets, and every glass collected water along its base. Paige hugged me first. Then she hugged Adrian and asked whether everything was still set. He said yes. His hand moved to the inside of his jacket again. I thought they meant the cake. Brielle noticed his clothes and asked who he was trying to impress. Nora, another friend from college, said Adrian looked nervous. I shrugged and told them he always became serious when people had a schedule. Adrian brought me a drink and reminded me that we needed to leave by 12:15. I asked why. He said Paige had planned something after the club and wanted us there on time. I looked at Paige. She was speaking with the DJ and would not meet my eyes. The simple version was that everyone had a plan except me. Their secrecy did not feel exciting. It felt like management. For the first hour, nothing went wrong. We danced as a group. Paige opened gifts. Adrian took photographs whenever someone asked. He drank half a beer and kept checking the time. At 11:10, Leo arrived. He knew Paige's cousin and had found his way onto the guest list through him. He wore a white shirt open at the throat and the same smile that had once made apologies feel unnecessary. Leo saw me before he saw Paige. He crossed the raised area and put both arms around me. The hug lasted long enough for Brielle to raise her eyebrows. The hug gave me plenty of time to step back. Instead, I rested one hand between his shoulders and let Adrian count the seconds. 4, 5, 6. When Leo released me, he looked at Adrian and asked whether this was the famous calm boyfriend. Adrian offered his hand and introduced himself. Leo shook it without turning his body away from me. Adrian did not squeeze harder or pull him closer. He simply asked how Leo knew Paige. Leo explained the cousin connection and added that he had known me before anybody there knew how much trouble I could be. Brielle laughed. Paige did not. Adrian's hand went to his jacket once more. He checked the time and asked if I wanted to speak with him near the coat room. I followed because refusing would have looked worse. The hall outside the coat room smelled of perfume and citrus cleaner. Music pushed through the wall in dull beats. Adrian stood far enough from me that nobody could mistake the conversation for a kiss. He asked whether I wanted him to leave. I said, of course not. He said Leo had come directly to me, and I had allowed the greeting to become a display. If there was something I needed to settle with my ex, Adrian would not stand between us. I told him he was making one hug sound like an affair. He said the issue was not jealousy. He did not want the evening turned into a contest where I used Leo to measure his reaction. I rolled my eyes and reminded him that he was not a jealous man. Adrian said he was asking me again not to humiliate him. The word asking caught in the same place it always did. A stronger man, I told myself, would not need permission to keep his girlfriend beside him. I asked what would happen if I ignored the request. Adrian looked at me for several seconds. His expression was not angry. It was open in a way that made my question look uglier than I wanted. He said he hoped neither of us had to find out. Then he touched the inside of his jacket and returned to Paige's table. I stayed in the hall long enough to turn his warning into another failure. He had not threatened to leave. He had not told Leo to go. Once again, the choice remained mine. Leo was waiting when I returned. He asked whether Adrian had given me a list of rules. I said Adrian did not believe in rules. Leo leaned closer and said that was because Adrian did not know how to hold a woman like me. The sentence was cheap. I knew that. It still reached the part of me that missed being treated like a dangerous prize. For the next 40 minutes, Leo kept returning. He remembered a road trip where we had driven 6 hours without a hotel reservation. He brought up a night when we danced until the bar staff stacked chairs around us. Every memory had been miserable before or after the bright part. In the club, he removed the consequences and offered me only the light. Adrian stayed near Paige. He spoke to Nora and checked his phone. Twice, our eyes met. Both times, He waited for me to choose what happened next. I called that weakness because calling it trust would have placed the responsibility back in my hands. Brielle had been drinking faster than the rest of us. She asked why I was standing beside the sofas when my ex was clearly waiting to dance. Another friend said Adrian might finally show some emotion if I gave him a reason. Paige heard them. She told Brielle not to create a scene on her birthday. Then she looked at me and said tonight was a bad night for a test. Curiosity would have been reasonable. Instead, I thought Paige and Adrian had discussed me. I imagined him asking my friend to manage my behavior because he lacked the courage to do it himself. Leo held out his hand. He asked for one song. Adrian stood beside the brass rail. The blue light cut across his jacket, and his left hand rested over the inside pocket. He did not shake his head. He did not come closer. I had a clear path back to him. I took Leo's hand. The dance floor was crowded enough that our group could see us without following. At first, Leo kept space between us. He moved with the easy confidence I remembered, and I laughed when he copied a step from our old club nights. For 30 seconds, it could still have been harmless. Then Leo placed his hands on my waist. My body went still before my pride made it move again. I knew where Adrian was. I did not need to search, but I searched anyway. He was watching from the rail. His face held no anger. That disappointed me. I wanted one crack in his calm, one public sign that I could still disturb the safest man I had ever known. So I turned my back to Leo. The distance closed. His hands moved lower along my hips. There was still room to remove them without stopping the dance. Instead, I covered one of his hands with mine and kept it there. Then I looked directly at Adrian. I smiled. It was not a nervous smile. It did not ask for rescue. I gave him the same small smirk Leo used when he knew another person had no answer. Nora's phone was raised near the edge of the floor. She had been recording Paige and turned the camera toward us when Brielle called her name. Brielle asked whether I was worried Adrian might leave. I kept my eyes on him and laughed. I said Adrian would do nothing because leaving required a kind of character he did not have. Leo heard me. His arm tightened around my middle, and he said Adrian would only stand there and watch. The song kept moving. Adrian's hand pressed flat against the inside of his jacket. For one beat, I thought I had finally hurt him enough to make him cross the floor. He did not. He gave me one slow nod. Then he took out his phone. His thumb moved once across the screen. Paige's phone lit on the table behind him. She read the message and covered her mouth. Adrian walked down the steps from our raised area. He did not look at Leo. He did not ask anyone to follow. The crowd opened near the exit, and the charcoal jacket disappeared through it. I watched him go. Then I danced for another 52 seconds. The simple version was that I could not run after him without admitting the test had frightened me. I wanted everyone to see that Adrian's exit had no power. Leo turned me back toward him, and I finished the song with my chin raised. When we returned to the table, Brielle asked whether Adrian had actually left. I said he was trying to scare me. 10 minutes would pass, maybe 15, and then he would call because he always started the conversation first. Leo laughed and said men like Adrian always returned. They were more afraid of losing a woman than of losing their pride. That answer calmed me because it sounded like the theory I had spent months building. I ordered another drink. For 6 minutes, I left my phone face down. At 7:09, I checked it. Adrian had sent one message. It said he was leaving and did not want me to follow. I called. He declined. The second call went to voicemail. During the third, our shared location disappeared from the screen. I set the phone on the wet table. My fingers stayed around it while water from the nearest bottle bucket reached my sleeve. Paige stood across from me. Her face no longer looked like a birthday face. I accused her of helping Adrian turn one dance into a crisis. She asked whether I had heard what I said on the floor. I told her I had been teasing. Paige said I had looked at Adrian before I moved closer to Leo and again before I called him weak. Brielle interrupted and said nobody had expected him to leave. Paige turned on her and said that was because everyone had treated Adrian's patience as consent. I said he would be outside. Paige did not answer. I waited another minute, so leaving would appear to be my decision. Then I walked through the club, down the short entry hall, and onto the sidewalk. Adrian's car was gone. The night air smelled like hot pavement after rain. A line of people waited behind a red rope near the door. I called again and listened to the full voicemail greeting. Paige came outside without her coat. I told her Adrian had ruined the end of her birthday because he could not handle one harmless dance. Paige rubbed both hands over her arms and asked me to stop calling it harmless. I said Leo had touched my waist. Nothing else happened. She said the worst part had not been Leo's hands. It had been my face when I checked that Adrian was watching. I blamed the drinks. Paige reminded me that I had planned the test at brunch weeks earlier. The simple version was that my friend had chosen his side before hearing mine. I said as much. Paige looked through the club window. Then she took out her phone. She said there was something I needed to see before I told the story to anyone else. The photograph filled the screen. Adrian stood on the bellwether rooftop beneath strings of warm lights. White flowers ran along the low wall. A small table held a bottle in a silver bucket and 2 glasses. In his right hand, Adrian held an open dark blue ring box. The picture had been taken at 6:20 that evening, before he picked me up. I touched the screen with one finger. Paige pulled the phone closer to herself. She explained that Adrian had called her 2 weeks earlier. He planned to take me to the rooftop after the club. Paige had arranged the terrace, flowers, and hotel access. 6 close friends were supposed to arrive first and wait inside. My parents and Adrian's family would join by video after I said yes. The calls. My father's schedule. The borrowed gold ring. The honest flowers. The hotel confirmation. 12:15. Every harmless detail stood up at once. Paige opened Adrian's last message. He had told her to cancel the rooftop because the proposal would not happen. He said he had received my answer before he asked the question. My knees bent, and I sat on the edge of a concrete planter. The stone caught the back of my dress. A taxi stopped at the curb, waited, and drove away when neither of us moved. I asked whether the ring had been in his jacket. Paige said he had collected it from the jeweler that afternoon. While Leo's hands were on me, Adrian had been holding the future he planned to offer. When I smiled at him, his palm had been covering the box. I asked Paige to call him. She refused. I said he would answer her because they had planned everything together. She said she had already replied that she understood and would cancel the hotel. She would not use the proposal to pull him back into the club. Behind the window, Leo lifted my unfinished drink and spoke to Brielle. He did not look worried about me. At 12:14, hotel staff began removing the flowers from the rooftop 3 blocks away. I knew because Paige received a message asking where to store them. She typed an answer while I sat beside the planter. 1 minute later, I was supposed to be in Adrian's car. Instead, I watched Paige arrange for white flowers to be thrown away. The next morning, I chose the version that hurt less. I told 2 mutual friends that Adrian had ended a 22-month relationship because I danced with an ex at a birthday party. I described him as secretly jealous and controlling. According to me, his calm nature had always been an act, and the club had exposed what happened when I refused to follow his private rules. One friend accepted the story. The other asked whether there was video. I said a few people had filmed, but the clips would show only dancing. Nora sent the full recording to Paige before noon. She did not post it. She said she wanted Paige to have it because my messages were making Adrian sound dangerous. Paige forwarded the file to Adrian. He sent it only to the 4 mutual friends I had already contacted and asked them to watch before deciding what they believed. The video began before Leo touched me. It showed me finding Adrian at the rail. It showed the pause before I turned my back. Nora's phone caught my hand holding Leo's in place. My smile faced the camera almost as clearly as it faced Adrian. The sound was worse. Brielle's question could be heard. So, could my answer about Adrian lacking the character to leave? Leo's reply followed. Then the frame moved to Adrian as he nodded and reached for his phone. There was no jealous man dragging me away. No boyfriend shouting threats. No confusion about who had created the public scene. The first friend who believed me sent one message saying I had left out the only part that mattered. Brielle admitted in the group chat that she had pushed me to dance, but said she had not expected me to use it to punish Adrian. Nora asked everyone not to share the file beyond the people involved. Paige removed me from the dinner she had planned for the following week. Leo did not enter the conversation at all. By afternoon, I knew Adrian had gone to his older brother Marcus's house. Adrian's apartment was closer to the club, but he expected me to wait there. Marcus lived 30 minutes away in a quiet neighborhood with narrow front porches. I drove there without asking. Adrian's car stood in the drive. The sight of it gave me enough hope to cross the porch quickly. I rang the bell twice. Marcus opened the door only a few inches. He said Adrian did not want to see me. I told him the relationship was not his business. Marcus answered that the house was. I stayed on the porch. For 11 minutes, I called Adrian's name and explained through the closed door. My first promise was to block Leo. Then I said Lumen could disappear from my life. Brielle could go too, since she had encouraged the dance. The door finally opened to the length of its chain. Adrian stood behind it in a grey t-shirt. The charcoal jacket was gone. He looked as if he had not slept, but his voice remained even. He said Leo and Brielle were not the reason he left. I reminded him that I had danced with Leo. Of course, Leo was the reason. Adrian said another man could only offer a hand. I had decided what to do with it. More than that, I had looked across the room, confirmed Adrian could see me, and then made the dance worse. I said I had wanted a little jealousy, not a breakup. He answered that I had not tested whether he loved me. I had tested how much humiliation he would accept because I believed patience made him weak. That sentence left no place for Leo to stand between us. I said one thing that was true. Adrian's calm had often made me guess whether anything reached him. He waited until hurt became a finished thought, then explained it like a repair report. Sometimes I needed a reaction while the moment was still alive. He did not argue. He said he avoided conflict too long and expected calm words to do work they could not always do. Then he reminded me that he had been clear twice. He had asked me not to use another man as a public weapon. I had heard the boundary and aimed directly at it. I asked to see the ring. Adrian looked away. For several seconds, only the porch light moved between us as insects crossed it. Then he brought a dark blue box into view. He opened it with one hand. The ring was a narrow gold band with an oval stone and 2 small diamonds set low beside it. It was not large enough to look like a performance. It looked like something chosen by a man who remembered I caught high settings on my sweaters. My hand moved toward the opening in the door. Adrian closed the box and pulled it back. He said he had bought it for a woman he trusted with freedom. The woman on Nora's video had used that freedom to see how publicly she could hurt him. I told him I was still the woman he planned to marry. He said he might never have known that woman as completely as he believed. I asked if he would return the ring. He said yes, but the decision no longer involved me. Marcus placed a canvas bag outside the door. It held my spare keys, a phone charger, running shoes, and the clothes I had left in Adrian's apartment. My blue toothbrush lay in a side pocket inside a plastic bag. Adrian did not come onto the porch. Before closing the door, he said I had been right about one thing. He would not fight Leo. He would not compete for a woman who had chosen another man for the purpose of humiliating him. Walking away was not the absence of a response. It was the response. The lock turned. Marcus switched off the porch light while I was still holding the canvas handles. For 2 days, I tried to make the loss mean Leo had won something valuable. I sent him a message and asked to meet. He suggested a bar near his apartment but arrived 40 minutes late. He spoke about the club as if it were a story from years earlier. I asked what he wanted now that Adrian was gone. Leo said one dance did not create a relationship. He had enjoyed seeing whether I would choose him while my boyfriend watched. I had done it, so the interesting part was over. I reminded him that he had called Adrian too weak for me. Leo smiled and said Adrian had left, which made the description difficult to defend. Then he asked whether I expected him to become stable because I had destroyed something stable on his behalf. The question was cruel, but it was not dishonest. Leo paid for his drink and left before mine was empty. He did not call the next day. A week later, he removed me from his social accounts after he started seeing someone else. The people who had encouraged the dance became careful around me. Brian apologized once, then stopped inviting me out. Nora answered only when the message involved returning something. Paige did not block me, but her replies became short and arrived hours later. Adrian never posted the video. He never sent photographs of the ring or the rooftop. When someone asked about the breakup, he said the relationship had ended at Paige's party and left it there. His silence no longer felt like weakness. It felt like a door with no handle on my side. 6 weeks later, Paige agreed to meet me for coffee. She did not come to repair the friendship. She brought a small box containing earrings I had left at her apartment and told me one final fact because she thought I would hear it from someone else. Adrian had returned the ring. The jeweler kept a restocking fee, but most of the money came back. He added it to savings he already had and used the total toward the first payment on a one-bedroom condo near the hospital district. Paige said Marcus helped him move on a Saturday. Adrian's mother brought food. My parents were not on a video call. No flowers waited on a roof. I asked whether Adrian was seeing anyone. Paige said she did not know. The answer was gentle, which meant she knew the question no longer belonged to me. At home, I opened Nora's video one final time. I stopped at the frame before Adrian turned away. The blue club light crossed his jacket. His left hand covered the pocket where the ring waited. My face appeared beyond him in the mirror behind the rail, already turned toward Leo. For months, I had called Adrian weak because he did not search my phone, raise his voice, or claim me in front of other men. I wanted him to prove love by removing my freedom. When he refused, I used that freedom to make him small in public. He had not stayed because he lacked strength. He had stayed because he trusted the promise I gave him. Once I broke it on purpose, there was nothing left for him to defend. The ring meant for my hand became the first payment on a door Adrian never opened for me.